Welcome back to another video, folks. I'm excited to be back making videos as things ramp up from winter into spring, and excited to show you some of the changes on the farm and what's been evolving and all of the exciting updates as we enter early March and get ready for season 2 to get started here. Not actually on the farm right now. Been taking some nice trips this late winter as things are warming up to some of my favorite rivers around western North Carolina, and taking the time to swim and integrate into the sunshine and the transition from winter into the warmer time of year. This is the Laurel River up here in Madison County, situated deep in this pretty epic granitic gorge, and great spot to raft, to swim, to fish. Love it. So you may have noticed a slight change on the channel, going from Wild East Farm to Small Scale Revival, and on the YouTube, as well as our education and outreach efforts, we're going to be focusing more on small scale systems generally, small farming, and using Wild East as a home base for a lot of the content, but wanted to be more inclusive and not have this side of what we do be strictly focused on Wild East. So I'm excited for you to follow along as this takes form and transitions, and as we are able to study in our region the different people working on a small scale to improve their communities, improve their regions, and contribute positively to their world in their own little way. It's lambing time. It's our first lambs here at Wild East. We've had 3 ewes give birth over the last week to healthy lambs, and looks like she might be next. But we have this one pair of triplets and 2 twins, and everyone's just doing great, adjusting real well, and loving life on this pasture. I just pulled the keyline plow through the pastures this week, and it seemed like it was really good conditions. There's pretty minimal impact that's visible, and it's amazing to see just after one season of an initial pass with the keyline plow and a year of broilers on the pastures, how green Northfield is and how much active grass growth there's been just in this first week of March. Driving around the valley and even our other pastures on the farm where we didn't run broilers last year, the difference is extremely noticeable. And so just excited to see that continue as we get more animals and more impact, and just really keep moving the needle on nutrient cycling. Got the tunnels filling up with spring transplants. Looking very nice in here. It's been so mild, we've been able to leave the tunnels open most nights, and got a mix of lettuces and radishes, bok choy, kales in there. And this is a new garden block we built out over the last month, and started already direct seeding radishes, carrots, spinach, and in about a week's time, 2 weeks time, this will be filled up. All right, got some of the first successions of field greens planted and a bit more seeding going in. We've got brassica transplants coming into these beds, so we're experimenting with seeding, direct seeding a crop like turnip or radish about a week ahead of time to give it a little bit of a head start and do an interplanting that way. Now this is the field block that we did some bed preparation trials for overwintering the no-till beds, and can do more of a comprehensive video about takeaways from that later. But we had really good success terminating the crimson clover just using tarps for several weeks. Even in the winter was effective. The beds that were covered in straw did not break down as much as I guess I had hoped, but it made for very easy path maintenance and path rejuvenation by just raking the straw that was in the beds into the adjacent paths. We started off really gung-ho about wood chip paths, but wood chip access is a bit of a challenge here, so seeing different ways to keep the paths mulched. We just have a couple more beds that are still under tarp, but here in early March, getting ready to have all these seeded and transplanted in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Here I've harvested live stakes of black willow and elderberry from around the property and just stuck them right in the ground. You can see some of the elders are already starting to leaf out. The idea here is to create a living hedgerow that will act as a windbreak. We get pretty good winds coming out of the west and act as beneficial pollinator habitat. And you can see this side of the garden, it just rained really hard yesterday, gets excess moisture, so having those perennial woody roots in the ground should also help soak some of that up. We have a big update in the processing shed. We got concrete poured this winter, and we got a big grant to invest in better processing equipment, mostly a bandsaw for butchering and a nice scale and a vacuum sealer that can handle a bunch of packages at once. So we're gonna be dialed in the processing shed in year 2. So this was a bit of a winter project, was renovating the chicken tractors from the traditional Salatin style to this lofted model that is on bike wheels that they operate, at least have in the past operated over at Ridgedale. And the idea with this is that we can scale up the number of chickens in each batch without needing to build additional structures. Since they're not confined underneath with the pen fully on the ground as they were before, they can come out and use the structure as shade and protection from the weather. But we'll just run 2 in a batch of about 500 chickens, operating a shelter for them, and run portable electric netting around the perimeter. And there'll be more videos about how this new setup is going, but we've got these built and staged and ready to go for chicks that are going out in 3 weeks. Little project over here, just getting the plumbing right for these new automatic waterers that we're going to have out in the field. Essentially, this poly is going to hook up to a hose that we keep on a reel and can easily move around the pasture, and there's just a float valve in here that automatically refills, keeping the chickens' water clean and full without the maintenance of needing to do it manually multiple times a day. So that'll be a nice upgrade in this new system. Happy chicks. It's our first batch chicks for 2024, and these guys are doing really well. We had a bit of a issue in the post, which happens occasionally, and if a post office employee is even just a little bit careless with a box of chicks, it can result in some mortality. So that was unfortunate, but shouldn't be a problem regularly. We've got some new setup here in the brooder, which is going to make life much nicer for us and the chicks. These automatic nipple waterers that we have plumbed up. Just a simple little rig to a 50-gallon barrel that is in the barn loft right over the brooder, and these hanging feeders. So at about 5 days, we'll start restricting their feed and giving them rations as we do. And at about a week, we'll start tossing clumps of grass in here to get them used to foraging. But these guys are looking healthy and active and quite nice. So here's the setup, just a quick shot of this. Simple, nothing fancy, just a float valve, and we've got this hose which runs down to a spigot or a hydrant out at the front of the barn, and then just drilled a hole, put this little valve in, and just using 3/4 inch black poly and some fittings, got it rigged up for constant access to fresh water without any maintenance for the chicks. So we're not going to have pigs this spring. Unfortunately, the folks we get pigs from had some issues with breeding over the winter, so they weren't able to supply what we needed, but that's okay. We're actually pretty interested in seeing how the woodland that they ran through over the last year develops in their absence, and that'll inform, at least help inform, how much longer we want to keep pigs in rotating through these paddocks, and how many we want, and how we're going to pair that with other management strategies. We had a prescribed burn through most of the woods on the farm in early February, and it went very well. And yeah, we're kind of just testing different strategies to move the direction of the ecology in these woods in a more beneficial way. And I've talked about that some in the past videos, but I'm going to show you some clips of the woods post-burn. So after a few weeks and some rains, it's already looking significantly less charred, but you can see still some of that evidence, and mostly you can tell on the ground because there was such a thick layer of leaf duff that we noticed last year is almost seeming to suppress any kind of undergrowth in the understory. We had almost no small herbaceous plants coming up that are really characteristic of woods in this area, and that's one reason we had the fire, was to allow for other species to thrive that may be getting suppressed. Another one here, you can see all the acorns dropping. Many oaks in this area are fire dependent, or at least fire adapted, in that their sap flow doesn't occur until later in the spring than a lot of other hardwoods. So they're protected and have insulative bark that protects them from fires, which typically fire season in the spring is December through late March. And some species that don't tend to survive as well are maples and tulip poplars, and some of the more quickly growing aggressive hardwoods that can end up outcompeting oaks. And oaks are really important trees for producing mast for wildlife, and white oak in particular has more insect species that are associated with it than any other hardwood tree, or any tree for that matter, in our region. So lots of benefits ecologically for having the fire. We also did it for accidental fire mitigation. We've had, just in 1 year, 3 lightning strikes touch down right on the property. And talking to a friend of mine who's a fire ecologist, he says that some places geographically are hot spots for lightning strikes, and that traditionally those would have been places that would have had natural fires in the ecology rhythm. But since fires are suppressed, we would have been at risk to have a potentially really bad fire while we were sleeping that could have woken us up. So by burning off all the fuel in a controlled manner, we're significantly mitigating the risk of a inadvertent wildfire engulfing the property and, you know, potentially having some catastrophic impacts. Yeah, we're excited to see how the ecology changes in here and how often we'll have to burn, because like the pigs, disturbance events aren't a one-time input. We'll just have to observe, and as we learn and see what's going on in here, take action in the ways that make the most sense. And we feel grateful to have fire as a tool to do so. We actually are also very grateful for the organization that helped us run the prescribed burn. It's the Southern Blue Ridge Prescribed Burn Association, and there are others like it around the country, but they're grant funded and nonprofit, so they're able to help with technical support both leading up to and the day of a prescribed burn for land stewards, landowners. And so they came out and provided the tools and helped us write a burn plan and submit it to the Forest Service. So really grateful for them as well. Thanks for watching another video, folks. Really appreciate you tuning in. I'm gonna jump in the river here and enjoy this beautiful spring day. See you next time.